Welcome to the D3 Discipleship Podcast, a podcast about the language and tools that help to create a culture of intentional discipleship in your church. We are excited that you're joining us today and hope that you enjoy what you hear.
Well, hey everyone, welcome back to Season 4 of the D3 Discipleship Podcast. My name is Ray, and alongside me is a special co-host, Miss Lauren Elliot.
What's up?
Hello.
Hi.
Good morning.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. So Katie is still out with her brand new baby.
Yes.
And so Lauren is here, and over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have her or others as we start our season, and we'll see when Katie gets back. I don't even know when she's supposed to be back. Do you?
Soon.
Soon.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
see.
Well, you know, everybody has their own definition of soon, so we'll have to see what that means. But man, this is season 4 of our podcast, episode 67. Lauren and I were just talking about how crazy it is, like over 3,000 downloads. So thank you. We will continue to do this if you continue to listen, and people are. So I don't know if it's my dad, but who it is. But Katie jokes that it's her mom. So I don't know. But somebody's listening.
Continuing to download the same episodes.
That's right. Over and over. Yeah. And so, hey, just keep doing that and you'll fool us and we'll keep making the episodes. But yeah, so today as we start a new season, I think what we're going to do is kind of talk about phase 1, idea of stories and sharing your story, and kind of get into maybe why that's important. And so let's do it.
Let's go for it.
All right, here we go. What do we want to talk about first?
Oh goodness, there's so much. I think I appreciate the tools that I think that's been in the past, 6-7 months, I don't know, since you've included how to build your story. Maybe it's been longer and I just wasn't aware.
Yeah.
But that's been super helpful to give that to my ladies that I'm discipling.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially if you haven't done it recently, it's a big task.
Yeah.
To try and tell your story, right? And an hour or less, especially for women. Men, maybe it's 15 minutes. That's easy.
Some of them are, yes.
Yeah.
So the tool she's referring to is on our website now. There is a kind of a template that you can download that has just some questions, and really kind of the questions that we want to dive into, like the foundational information that we want to get out of stories.
Yeah.
And so if I can, I remember right offhand some of those. I
did pull it up.
Oh, awesome. Look at you. You're on it.
I tried.
You're on it. Yeah. What are some of those questions?
Okay, the one that I'll just dive right in. I think this is an amazing question, but so my current group right now, we have just done one story outside of the leaders.
Okay. Yep.
And I don't think they touched on this. I totally understand. It's a hard question.
Yeah.
But do you currently have any hurts, hang-ups, or habits?
Yeah.
For example, addictions, medical problems, family hurt, and hard relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to go for it, let's just go for it.
Let's dive in.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I love that. You also just have kind of prompts of what was your family dynamic growing up?
Yeah.
Are you married? Have you been married? How'd you meet? Just really getting into that. How did that spouse affect your spiritual life?
Yeah.
When did you begin your relationship with Jesus? Tell us about your baptism. So great questions that we want to hear.
Yeah. So on that, as a leader, we want to be listening. And I love what you said. You and your co-leader went first, right? So we'll remind you that, yes, that's what we want to do. Leaders want to go first to set the tone. And I think that's been helpful in our guys group. We were joking that it takes only 15 minutes for the guys. But when our leaders go and you give a full, clear example of how to do this, it kind of makes you go, oh, wow, okay, I got to fill up the time.
Absolutely.
But then that other piece of okay, you as the leader, the things you're listening for, the whole reason we do stories, right? Yep. And the why of stories is to get to know and get a snapshot of this person's life.
Absolutely.
So those family origin questions, it seems like, why would you want to know that? Well, because that sets the stage for who that person has become, really.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. So I do a marriage assessment called Prepare and Enrich. And a big thing for them in that is your family origin will play a big role in how your marriage looks, right?
Yes.
And so same thing in discipleship. Hey, where you grew up, how you grew up, if your family had any love or concern for Jesus, that's a big deal.
It is.
And you can kind of see that play out in some people's lives as well.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And then, the hurts, habits, and hangups, you're listening for it there in that very first,
absolutely, like
very first few minutes.
That I think as a leader is when you are listening as a leader.
Yeah,
I had to ask, what am I, my first go around of leading, I had to ask a mentor, that had done discipleship before. I'm like, I'm excited to hear their stories and get to know them, but what, as a leader leading them through discipleship, what should I be listening for?
Right.
And not just as a friend, right? And so it was those are like potential things that you're going to have to walk through with them.
Right.
And so that's like, hey, let's just spill it out if you want to for us. You know, it gives a great opportunity to, okay, what you're going to walk through. The one that did share just recently, I mean, she was like, here's what I think I'm going to walk through in discipleship. Ooh. And so that was awesome. Yeah.
like, here's the reality of what I'm already dealing with.
Exactly. Yeah. So the self-awareness is huge.
Yeah.
And to provide them that prompt of like, hey, what are,
mm-hmm.
I think that's great too, of, hey, where's the Lord wanting to grow you and transform you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are like some things in your groups, especially like you're starting a new one, you just had one person share, like, so how vulnerable were you in sharing your story? And have you seen that come out in like this particular individual giving their first round?
Yeah, I think, first of all, she's just, she is a vulnerable person. She wasn't excited about it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
She had anxiety going into it. But as far as me, it's easy for me to share. I don't care airing my own laundry.
Yeah.
I don't care airing
this is
the laundry
me,
of
right?
my home.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is maybe not a great thing all the time. So I just am, because I'm like, it's going to come out eventually. You know what I mean? Like, I just have a hard time I'm an overshare by nature. So, so that is helpful. And my co-leader was super vulnerable too. It's one of those too, like, I mean, I think there was some allusions to things. We do allow questions at the end too, like, hey, if there's something you heard. And so, I mean, they asked pointed questions. We have someone in our group that was just very pointed of, hey, you alluded to this, like, does this mean, this word or, whatever. And so,
right.
Sorry, trying to be protective of
No, I get it. Yeah.
And so, but yes, I've had other groups where leaders aren't as vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that makes it's just hard. It's harder because it's harder for, like you said, everybody is going to give as much or maybe 75% of what your leaders give.
Right.
And so if you're not able to share all of it, you only share 75, well, then you're only going to get half truths, from your people. So I think it's just, you got to air it.
Yeah.
And, too, we continued to say, like, we have, not just me, but we have a couple of staff members, for here at New City Church in our D group, or like spouses of staff.
Yeah.
And so it was also like, hey, we're going to share stuff that we cannot leave this room.
Right.
And so also just making sure that that's the priority too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, hey, this is a closed situation here.
And so they know they feel safe sharing those things. And
good.
Again, I mean, it's one of those I know in past groups with being on staff and, being with people in our congregation, like I have to be guarded, know, with how much I share, but I would be very vulnerable with, hey, there's things going on that I can't share, but I so wish I could too, and like the only reason I can't is to protect this other person on staff or, that kind of thought. So
totally.
Just even as much as you can share and being able to just find that boundary. But yeah.
And I think some people come into the group and they are hesitant, right? Or they have high anxiety to share this thing.
Yes.
Something cool that happened in my last group was, we had a guy, he asked me a question beforehand of like, hey, if I share this, do you think that's going too far?
Yeah, that's
And I'm like, no, like that's happened to you, right? And so he shared it, but then where it got cool, I guess, or unique was like, again, Holy Spirit putting your group together.
Absolutely.
Another guy in the group goes, that's my story too.
Yep.
And it was like, neither one of them knew that about the other.
Absolutely.
But I mean, it's a pretty big deal, right?
Yeah.
Something happened in their past and different things, and he shares it, and then the other person goes,
that's so great.
Hey, that's me too. And it was like, whoa, hey, you're not doing this alone or walk through this alone, but it's like been a deal. And so on the flip side of that, had an individual in my group that was not vulnerable at all.
Yeah.
And then we've even gotten out of group and discovered this thing was a big deal in their past.
Oh, no.
And really brought some clarity to why they acted the way they did in the group.
For
right?
Sure.
And even So that particular person was not even deployed.
Yeah.
But now to look back and know that about them is like, well, this is why you were never open and honest or vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because you were hiding this thing the whole time.
Yeah.
Of spending the time in discipleship with us.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Oh, it's so hard.
Yeah.
And I think the more vulnerable the rest of your group is, the easier to pick out that is too of, hey, there's something going on that this person's not sharing. So
exactly.
One of the tips I got of what am I listening for when my group is sharing was, what are they not sharing?
Yeah.
And so are they not talking about their marriage?
Avoidance. Yeah, exactly.
Like, are they not talking about, did they never mention baptism? Like, these little things that you're like, oh, so for me, with just being one in, even with my co-leader, I'm like, I need to go back and we take notes.
Yeah.
As a leader, I have to take notes.
Oh, yes. Please take notes. Please take notes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they were like, wait a second. When you pull out that notebook when they're sharing, and I'm like, I just can't remember. So
that's right.
That's the main thing.
This is not a counseling session, but I am writing this down. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, being able to go back through and read, okay, what is missing too?
Yeah.
And then I've noticed too, like maybe this is true for you, you can tell me, but when you share, how many groups have you done? I should start there. 4. Okay. Yeah. So has your story been the same every time?
My story? No.
You've shared it?
No. Okay. And I'll say it changes on the latter half, like the back end, right? Like stuff I've just experienced in the past year or two, or even stuff that's come out of discipleship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what was interesting this time was things that were earlier in my life. Like I shared more about extended family than I usually do.
Yeah.
Or that kind of stuff, just because of more recent, things that are happening that I'm like, hey, this is like, I have a cousin that that has been reaching out to me, like people that don't know Jesus that are reaching out to me. Very cool. And how that's bringing up more past memories or past things too, that I'm like, oh, this is maybe important for where I'm going to be at with you all in this room. And so, yeah.
Very cool.
It's been interesting.
Yeah.
I have another question for you.
Okay, let's do it.
Because I'm with girls. What does it look like to do stories with men? And I know I know there's like a hope, but then what's...
Yeah, so I mean, again, the hope is that we get all aspects and areas of your life. I think the sheet has helped a lot, like just having the questions and getting them in the right direction. Mm-hmm. However, I think guys tend to be more on the like career-driven side of things. Okay. Like you hear a lot of that. For sure. Like I worked here, and I did this, and it's like.
Accomplishments.
I don't necessarily need to know where you worked in high school, but cool. Yeah, that's great. And so, and then it's funny. I don't know if funny is the right word. Maybe it is. Sure. But when they start talking about, we got married and then we had kids, right? Like, and it's just like, it's not that it's I don't want to make it sound like it's a bad thing, but they're like, life changed, right? Yes. And like it was different and all that. But besides that, I think it's maybe similar. Yeah. Yeah.
How long do you guys take? Do you guys do more than one a night? More than one story?
No, we typically say, hey, you've got the hour and a half. And when I'm leading, I try to, like, if they go 30 minutes or 45 minutes, oh, no, we're going to draw more out of you than that. Cool. Good. And so it's like, what questions can I ask that will get more information? Yeah. We had a guy in our last group that shared his whole story, like full, here's how I've gotten to where I am. Yeah. And there was not ever a point that he mentioned like his baptism or his, like, I accepted Jesus. Yeah. So like, that's super important. We want to know that, right? Absolutely. And so my co-leader was like, hey, I didn't what did you not say?